Hello, good morning, and good now to most places, but good morning for those who are in this region of the world. Good morning to welcome to the regular Sunday meditation followed by talk. This morning, and this being a part of the Sagadawa, this is the sacred month of Buddha's triple enlightened activities. So therefore, I'm going to slightly change the session. This morning, I will be doing mostly chanting. And during that, I would suggest you do the meditation. I will be doing the chanting of the recollecting the qualities of the triple gem and the 35 Buddhas of confession with regard to 35 Buddhas, and then I will be also chanting the praise to the Shakyamuni Buddhas for whole life. So while I'm doing this, I'll suggest you to do the meditation. Do the meditation continuously in the space before you, as we will screen the Shakyamuni Buddha image, and as I'm chanting, I'll suggest you to make your time for meditation in 3 portions, that like we usually do, 3 slots. So all the 3 slots are only broken into 3, but otherwise same technique. What is the technique? Is you visualize the fully enlightened Shakyamuni Buddha as we will screen on you, and see the Buddha in a seated in meditation posture, his right hand at earth touching gesture, left hand on his hand, his left hand on his lap. And then in meditative posture, and then what you do is you visualize his body as not a physical body, as a nature of light, embodiment of love and wisdom and compassion. And you just have to feel, as today your meditation object is Shakyamuni Buddha. Not only is Shakyamuni Buddha, but you are continuously thinking that from the Buddha there are many blessings emits from his forehead, from his throat, from his heart. So from the forehead, white light comes out and just goes and beams and penetrates through your forehead and blesses your whole body of all the illnesses become cured, and all the difficulties in the physical body becomes healed and transformed. And instead you receive these amazing blessings of Buddha, how amazing power, how you may control and use your physical effort and energy in a very skillful way by the blessings of recollecting the Buddha's infinite qualities of holy body. Likewise, you visualize from the Buddha's throat, red rays of light radiates, and these red rays of light goes and penetrate through your throat chakra. It goes to permeate through whole throat and mouth and teeth and gum, all that region, and you receive all the holy enlightened speech blessings of the Buddha, and get rid of all your tendencies and habits of negative karma of speech and your hearing and all that kind of your vulnerability to hear something, you get disturbed and you believe in all the story. All of that is completely allayed by the wisdom mind of the Buddha that allows you to hear all sound as just anguish and stories of the deluded world, and don't give too much effort into it to react poorly, but respond with compassion. Then from the heart of the Buddha, blue rays of light radiates and then absorb into your heart chakra and relieves your mind and emotion and deep turbulent situation, always filled with love and wisdom and compassion. So what your meditation throughout the whole, these 3 slots of time, I can just indicate the time just to help you. During the gong I beat, then you can just take a mini break, and then again visualize the white, red and blue light emitting from the Buddha's forehead, throat and heart simultaneously into your forehead, throat and heart, and you're staying very blessed. And your attention is, you can see the Buddha, you know that by thinking of the Buddha as object of meditation, that it will awaken your body, speech, mind, and so on. So therefore you have form to focus on, and feeling to engender, and knowledge to keep your mind very enticingly focused, and so that you're not distracting your mind. If your mind wanders off, could slowly bring it back, and to visually focus the Buddha in front of you. So while in the background, I will be doing the chanting. So we'll be doing this for a good half an hour. Throughout the whole time, I'll be doing the chantings. So here we will start. So today and next week, in 2 weeks, 2 talks, I will be covering the life of the Buddha as a topic of this talk. So this reason is because this week, this couple of weeks coincide, according to Tibetan Buddhist calendar, the Sagadawa, which is the month of great many merits. 100,000 merits can be earned by recollecting the infinite qualities of Buddha's enlightened activities, and then therefore whoever does any kind of prescribed Dharma activities, they will have a great meritorious things. And likewise, it is said anything one does, anything negative also has just as many times negative. So therefore, it is urged for everyone to strive good mindfulness to practice Dharma. So I will be able to explain a little bit about life of Buddha, first half today and second half in the next talk. There will be 2 parts, and so therefore we will look at the life of the Buddha. And Buddha, of course, is a very historical person. Buddha came about 629 years before even the name of Christ was there. So there was not even the kind of a regime of 2020 years we counting nowadays. It is 2,564 years ago Buddha was born. So in this first part of the talk, I will cover what they call first half of his life, and next week the second half of his life. The first half is what I call conventional life. It's a life that is before he became monk. So therefore, it's more like his worldly life. But of course, the good part of the life is not really worldly at all. But nevertheless, the conventional story tells that Buddha was born as an Indian prince and so on. So I will firstly cover the life of the Buddha. As that life of Buddha is the life of a prince of an Indian small kingdom called Shakyas. Before he was born there, so Buddha's life has 12 major great deeds, and today we will cover the first 6 major deeds. First major deeds is the Buddha in his formal incarnation was the reigning king in the heaven called Tushita. And there he reigned there by the name of King Shwetaketu. Shwetaketu means one who wears a white crown. Shweta means white, Ketu means a crown. So Tambatokkarpo we call in Tibetan. So he was reigning as a king there, and then he made a particular observation. He made 5 observations because he was requested by the gods and others that it is time for him to go to the world and show the way to become enlightened as a Buddha. And so he was already chosen one to do that. And so he handed over his crown to the next reigning Buddha, that is the Maitreya Buddha, who then he enthroned him to become his successor in Tushita heaven. So according to Mahayana Buddhists believe that the Maitreya Buddha is currently up in Tushita heaven, reigning the world of the Devas. So during the time of Shakyamuni Buddha, he therefore made a decision to come to the world by handing over the reign of Tushita heaven, the white crown, to his successor Maitreya. And so this was part of his 5 observations he made before he made observation the which realm he will be born, which kingdom, which mother, what time, and what race. So he chose to be born in the what we call the earth, and the kingdom is the Shakya kingdom, and he chose the Maya Devi because she has earned a lot of merit to become the mother, and then the second is the time, the fourth one is the time. Timing was he conceived in mother's womb at a time, so that the mother had only just 10 months and 1 week lifespan left. So there was a great difficulty. Of course, Buddha's father's name is Shuddhodana. He was the reigning king of the Shakyas, and he was married to his queen Maya Devi, and also Prajapati Gautami. So both the two sisters were married to him. Who knows who else? In those days, kings have many queens. So these two sisters were married, and both of these two sisters were always hoping if one got pregnant, and the other one hoped the other one got pregnant. In any case, finally, after lots of prayers and so on, the queen Maya Devi had a good dream, and that is what it called, after Buddha had made 5 observations to descend from the heaven, then he chose how to enter in the mother's womb. So it is said that he entered in the mother's womb in the form of a 6-tusked white elephant. And it is said that the Queen Maya Devi, who did not have much luck in conceiving by a child for a long time, even though it is said that the king Shuddhodana married her second sister with the hope of conceiving baby with the younger one, but the younger one was hoping the elder one still will have more chance to get conceived, because out of mutual respect and so on. Finally, doing a lot of prayers and so on, the Queen Maya Devi actually had conceived the child, and this was signaled by a very amazing dream, 36 or different amazing dreams that Queen had on the night of her conception. And then as she told her dream to her husband, King Shuddhodana, he was very pleased, and to confirm the truthfulness of the Queen's dream, he consulted some local soothsayers and astrologers, and who all then proclaimed that Queen Maya Devi has certainly conceived not only a child, but an amazing child who will be a most powerful monarch that no Shakyas have ever had before. So the king, Shuddhodana, and everyone in the ancient city of capital Kapilavastu, and was very delighted and happy, and they celebrated. And Queen Maya Devi therefore requested that she be allowed to observe very strict Sikh vows in order to have this very good pregnancy. And so Queen Maya observed many strict vows and stay in very great care to during the period of his pregnancy. And so that is those first two is this descent from the heaven, and then conception in the mother's womb, Maya Devi. And Maya Devi, then the third one is the birth. Now it is said in ancient time that it was tradition for the bride recently married, or bride who were going to give a birth, usually goes to their maternal home to give birth. So it is said. In any way, they from Kapilavastu, Queen Maya Devi, together with the king and everyone, went on a big royal caravan to go to her maternal home, place called Devadaha. Devadaha is some maybe 40 miles from east of a couple of Vastu. On the halfway in between the two is situated the garden called Lumbini. The garden in Lumbini was the garden named after Maya Devi's mother, who, due to her great fondness of garden, her husband actually built this garden, and then so therefore Queen Lumbini passed away, delighted with her garden, and some even believe that she was born as a form of a goddess in the garden. And so therefore that pleasure garden of Lumbini was situated halfway between ancient city of Kapilavastu and Devadaha. And so when Maya Devi and her husband and everyone was going on a caravan to go to visit her maternal home, it is said on the way, while they are enjoying this beautiful scenery of the garden, instantaneously the Queen Maya Devi gave birth miraculously without any labor or hardships or pain, gave birth to the Shakyamuni Buddha, the Prince Siddhartha. When the prince said, when he was born, without she having gone through any labor or pain, instantly all the devas descended from the heaven and created a cordon off and kept it in a curtained place. So the queen gave birth. As soon as the baby was born, miraculously, not through the womb, it is said. Anyway, so he was born miraculously. And then it said the Brahman Indra has descended from heaven to offer clothes to the newly born Buddha, but he refused to accept clothes from them. Instead, he walked 7 steps to the east and then west and the north, west, south and west and the north, saying that he is the supremest and this is his last incarnation and he is the enlightened one. So proclaiming that he was born, as soon as he was born, it said that his birth was accompanied with many miraculous bright light and rainbows everywhere to many different parts of Indian subcontinent. Particularly, it is said there were many 500 different people were born who were going to play a very significant role in the life of the Buddha, such as the 4 great kings of India was all born, and all of them was named after the bright light they saw, and they all thought it was because of the glory of their kings that the bright light manifested and the birth of their royal child happened. Nobody knew at the time this was all to do with the miraculous birth of Buddha. That whole world became lit, and therefore anyway all of those 4 Indian princes were named after this bright light, like Prasenajita and so on, and Bimbisara and various other Indian kings' sons were all named after the bright light. It is said that Buddha is his own would-be future attendant as a king, Chandaka, and then the horse Kantaka, and many other wonderful things were also part of his would-be life. So anyway, because the prince was born miraculous on the halfway of his journey, and then Queen Maya Devi with all her entourage then returned back to Kapilavastu instead of moving forward to Devadaha, and so the birth of the Buddha coincided many miraculous occurrences of such as discovery of many treasures, and many conflicts naturally become mediated, and many sick become well, and all become young, and warring parties became friend, and Kingdom of Kapilavastu discovered many as 500 different treasures. So there are many stories about that accompanied Buddha's birth. And since when Buddha was born, And because it happened, so many wonderful things happened, and then there was a naming ceremony. At the naming ceremony, they were just considering what name to be given, because so many wonderful things were accomplished. Because particularly the king himself was wanting to have a child for long, and that was accomplished. So many other wonderful things were also realized, and so then they all decided to give the name Siddhartha. The word Siddhartha comes from word Siddha and Artha, because Siddha means accomplishment, like spiritual accomplishment is Siddha. Artha means meaningful, so meaningful accomplishment. So having a son, of course, is a very meaningful accomplishment for many couples, and not to mention King Shuddhodana and his queen Maya Devi. So he was given the royal child Siddhartha. And so Siddhartha had many uncles, at least four uncles and 2 aunties or something. All of his uncles and his aunties also have children. So he had many cousins. And some of his cousins that will play a very significant role in his life were Ananda, Mahanama, Niruddha, as well as Devadatta, and all of them were fathers, were brothers of Buddha's father, Shuddhodana. So anyway, so that's the birth of the Buddha. As soon as he was born, and then there was a very famous, very well-revered kind of hermit by the name of Asita. As soon as the Buddha was born, Asita, who was meditating in the Himalayas, knew the Buddha was born, and he exclaimed that the world has now seen this birth of this enlightened one. He told his nephew that we must go and see this royal child, because this is the most best thing that ever happened. So he sort of knew, and all of a sudden he arrived at the royal palace in Kapilavastu, and demanded or requested that he be allowed to pay respect to the royal child. And then King Shuddhodana, together with his family, finally allowed. As soon as the saint Asita came in the palace, he held the baby, and then he was completely astounded to see this royal child endowing all these 32 major physical and 80 minor physical marks, and he knew for sure that this is going to be an enlightened one. So he placed the child on a particular throne, and he made 3 circumambulations, and then bowed down. That probably was the first kind of time when the circumambulation took place. And then King was requesting, "Why are you behaving this manner?" And he said, I'm paying homage to this. And then he also cried. King was very worried that maybe this wise man can see some bad future to his kingdom and the child. And then when he cried and circumambulated the royal child 3 times, the king requested, "Why are you crying?" He says, "I'm not crying because any bad sign or omen to you and him. I'm crying because of my own lack of merit." He says, "I'm too old to witness this royal child become enlightened and going to give the world the most enlightened path, show the path to enlightenment. I'm crying because of my own destiny, not of you." And then the king was instead of becoming very delighted by this, he was disturbed, because he didn't want his child to become a monk and saint at all. He wanted his child to become what really he wants is to become a very powerful monarch. And the king had no intention of allowing the prince to become a mendicant or whatsoever. So that's, and unfortunately during that time, before that, Queen Maya Devi, after 1 week after she has just returned from Lumbini having given birth, she just passed away, and because that was the lifespan she had. When the Buddha surveyed when and where and what time and who, which mother, he made sure that he entered into her womb just before she had barely less than a year left of her lifespan. They say that the reason for that is that Buddha timed that way is so that she does not suffer from a big shock when he actually leaves the home and become a mendicant. Like most mother will be disheartened when the child he leaves. So therefore Buddha timed so that she doesn't have to suffer like that. So that's one version of it. Not all conventional story tells about that. Anyway, so after the child, even though the soothsayer Asita has said, as well as other sort of Brahmins also told the similar things, the king didn't want to have any bar of it. He was very certain that he wanted his child to become a king. So that what we call concludes his birth. Then the fourth of his enlightened activities, his life of Buddha, constitute his youth and his education. Now the King Shuddhodana had of course assigned many sort of nurses to look after the royal child, and not only that, his second queen Prajapati Gautami, the second younger sister of Maya Devi, has now become the stepmother, and also she's now the second. She was already the second queen, and now she actually basically became the wet nurse to bring up the royal child, and in relation to his youth and education and everything. So the Prajapati Gautami became very, very involved in the life of young Prince Siddhartha. And Prince Siddhartha was somewhat often behaving like very unusually, even when everybody is plowing in the season, and he would go and sit there under the tree as a mendicant, sit and cross-legged and meditate, and he often showed lots of sort of melancholic feeling, as if he's not so delighted to see all these insects and lives being killed and destroyed while people plowing to do the farming and so on. So therefore, some of them called the royal child, already he had a name of Siddhartha, but some of them called him Shakyamuni. Shakyamuni because his family name is Shakya. Muni means sage. He's the saint of the Shakyas, because he was always, even as a child, he showed this behavior that he's always acting like a saint and a monk, and so reclusive. He wasn't always sort of like an average child. He showed many signs of amazing skill and talents. And when they assigned about 30 or more personal tutors to teach in all fields of study, from language to science and math and sportsmanship and whatever they taught, as soon as the teacher taught once, he would master all of them. And his cousins were always sharing the test class and his companion his study. And his young cousin Devadatta was already sort of have, and his Devadatta's mother as well, particularly Amrita Dana, one of the lady. They were both she and her son Devadatta really were envious of the Siddhartha's wealth and fame and respect that he was getting, and whereas Devadatta, as a young cousin, right from the very beginning, was very envious, always competitive. Whatever Siddhartha had, he had to have them, because his wealth and family was just as equally rich and well off. He could get all of that. So there was a bit of tension going on even in his youth against a rival from his cousin Devadatta. And so anyway, it is said that Buddha was very, very good archer, good sportsmanship, good swordsmanship, good swimmer, you name it. He excelled in every one of those youthful activities, study, art, and scholarship, and everything. He came top of all the class, and his cousin was always jealous and always tried to. And one time that happened, the famous story is Devadatta was hunting, and he shot down a flying sort of geese or something. And when the flying geese fell in the royal garden, Siddhartha went and nursed the injured bird and removed the arrow from his body, and then he looked after it. And after a while, his cousin Devadatta came saying, "That's my bird because I shot it down." It is said that the two cousins had a bit of a fight over the bird, arguing who had the right over it. And Devadatta thinks it's his bird because he's the one who shot it down. And Siddhartha argued very vehemently, saying, "No, it's not the one who just destroyed life, but the one who's trying to save the life." So he said, "It's mine." Siddhartha wasn't known or seen to be argumentative to anything in the past, but with that case, he wasn't going to give a bar of it, and so therefore the two cousins could not agree on the matter, and they were always rivaling against each other. And later on, the whole case became a big case in a court, and when it became a court case, whether who has the right to the swan, the one who's shot it down, or one who's actually picked the injured bird and save it. So could not be kind of agreed upon by many people. In the end, they all agreed that they should bring a kind of a indifferent saint or somebody who from outside who can then tell. Later on, because everybody thinks that should be the one who is shot down, because that's what the world thinks, because they don't have any consideration of living beings other than theirs. But the soothsayer or very wise man came and said, no, this bird is owned to one who saves life, not one who destroys its life. If the one who saves life will let the bird live, one who destroys life will not let the bird live. So therefore, this Prince Siddhartha is actually the rightful owner, carer of this bird, because he's trying to save the bird from dying, and he has saved it now. If the bird were to be shot down by Devadatta and others, it would be dead, and there will be no bird. So therefore, the wise man gave the verdict that it is the Prince Siddhartha who has the rightful say about the future of the bird, not Devadatta who to destroy. So there is this kind of historical tension between the Buddha and his cousin Devadatta, starting with that, including all kinds of competitions, including the time when the Prince King Shuddhodana was looking for a girl that his son Prince Siddhartha could marry. And so that when that happened, the Shakyamuni Buddha or Prince Siddhartha first refused to marry. He said he's not interested to marry at all, and saying that there weren't any suitors. And then later on, his father said, if you really are so picky and like that, at least write down all the qualities of the would-be bride should have, and so that we can go on looking for one. So after that, Buddha wrote down 16, or I'm not exactly sure, 16 or so specific characteristics that women must have. He said, if the woman has all these characteristics, I will marry her. So then King Shuddhodana gave this list of things and sent many different sort of people to all over his kingdom and nearby kingdoms if there were any girls who matched this description. So finally, the girl called the Yashodhara. Yashodhara is the daughter of King king, the eastern, another kingdom called Kingdom's daughter, and his name is the Dandapani. Dandapani's daughter Yashodhara. Yashodhara had all the qualities. So when the king and his minister discovered that there was a beautiful girl who had all these characteristics, so then they insisted Buddha to go and accept this girl, but he wasn't quite. In any case, they arranged skillfully a party of some sort where they invited all the beautiful girls for some kind of a festival or party during which the Prince Siddhartha, who's now a very young man, was meant to meet all these girls, and the king was just trying to entice in him, getting to know and know about the girls and so on, and made arrangements so that all these beautiful girls, among which Yashodhara was there too, that they should all come up to Prince as a part of the festival celebration in the evening, and then he would give a present to everyone. So on that occasion, of course, all the girls lined up with great enthusiasm, wanting to be close to the prince and get some favorable treatment and getting his present or whatever. And those days there was no photo or selfies you can take, so I don't know what else you can try to do. Anyway, all the girls went and queued up and get that presents and everything, and the prince gave all the present one by one. And the last, he ran out of present. And the last girl who came when he ran out of present was Yashodhara, because that was one of the characteristics of the girl, was someone who's very, very polite and put others first, and she came last. She let everybody go. And so the Buddha, Prince Siddhartha, was very delighted to see this girl, but he didn't have anything left. But instead he took his own ring, it's said, and gave it to her. And then king and all the ministers thought, oh, she definitely is not only the one they have found to be the most suited one, but also the giving his own ring to her really looked like the he actually have got some attention of the girl. And so in the end, then they said, requested Dandapani to let his daughter marry the Prince Siddhartha. But the Dandapani had argued, said that his daughter many people have requested to marry with her. So there were many rivals who have requested. So all these young men who wanted to marry with his daughter must all prove their sportsmanship, and whoever wins in the various competition of the sport, then he will be allowed to marry his daughter. So it is then that Buddha was able to, Prince Siddhartha was able to engage in various competitions, whether it's swimming or whether it's a swordsmanship or archery or lifting or running or whatever. They're all, some of the biography shows clearly that there was a competition between Siddhartha and his, again, cousin Devadatta. Devadatta sort of, when someone having heard the Buddha Siddhartha has been born and would be a Buddha or king in the future, somewhere in India sent a beautiful elephant as a gift to the king Shuddhodana, to his son. When Devadatta saw this present being brought to the palace, he asked what for, and then he got so annoyed and jealous, he punched the elephant and killed the elephant. Before the elephant could be given as a gift to the prince Siddhartha. But when they heard the prince Siddhartha that the elephant has been killed by Devadatta, but yet the dead body of elephant, nobody can move. And so the question isn't really who owns the elephant and so on, but who can remove the dead body of elephant. So even Devadatta, who was very strong and could kill the elephant, but he would not be quite able to move. But it is said Siddhartha came and he touched his only big toes, briefly touched the big toes elephant body. The elephant body just lifted and flung up and was thrown away and very far away into the Paris. And then they all knew that the great skill and power and strength of Siddhartha was peerless, no match whatsoever. So therefore, where the elephant body fell became a name called Elephant Ditch. In the ancient history, there is a place near Kapilavastu there where that elephant body was fell, where the Siddhartha threw. So in this way, he got married, and he became excellent in his everything we studied, and sportsmanship and competition, and like that. And then King Shuddhodana was very, very keen to have his son Siddhartha to be coronated. In those days, Indians coronate the royal child fairly early. Anyway, so the royal child was coronated, and he was married to not only Yashodhara but the Mrigadwaja and quite a lot of other beautiful maidens were all brought into the palace to carry out various palace kind of duties. But in those days, those kings and princes have many queens or companions or escort in the royal palace, and so he was completely lavish with all the comforts, company, enjoyment, pleasure, dance, and everything. The palace was kept with such a care. King Shuddhodana, having heard the possible likelihood of the palace, prince leaving, he made sure that palace was really immaculately kept, where the royal prince and his queen and everyone found and have everything they can ask for. They built special palaces suited to each of the 4 seasons. Lumbini and Kapilavastu in those days, as it is today, is fairly hot place. So therefore they have to. In those days they have no air conditioning, but nevertheless they have to build the palace so that it was so soothing, so the palace had no sort of heat problem or cold problem or like that. So they made sure the palace was very beautifully kept. And king was so the Shakyamuni Buddha, as the Prince Siddhartha, was coronated as the king. King Shuddhodana was delighted to have this opportunity to enthrone his son, and of course Prajapati Gautami, the stepmother, has done a fabulous job to bring him up like that. But of course, it is said while he was reigning as a king, he was amazing, but at the same time, he always wondered what was life like outside his palace, because most princes are very insulated. Royal families are very much insulated. So Shakyamuni Buddha, so as the prince, the King Siddhartha, you can call King Siddhartha, asked his father's permission for him to get out of the palace and go to have an excursion of the palace, of the city, city of Kapilavastu. I don't know how big that was, but definitely Kapilavastu is not really mentioned as a large city, but in comparison to particularly Vaishali. The ancient city of Vaishali is considered to be the largest city in India of those 5th century BC. Kapilavastu was probably a fairly small kingdom, but nevertheless the palace was very amazing. Palace name is Ngangkyanden, Hansa Singha, because the Lord of Swans would come, and so often it's covered in the small lakes were covered many swans, and hence that's why Devadatta shot one of the swans that is flying. So in the palace called Hansa Singha, Hangshawati or something, and there was a beautiful river called Bhagirathi, and so the scene of the whole palace was perfectly beautiful to enjoy. But the prince requested the father to let him go, have an excursion. So then finally the prince gave in the permission for his prince Siddhartha to go on excursion, and then Buddha had his best companion called Chandaka, and he has a horse called Kantaka. And so always when the royal child would ride on his horse with his friend Kantaka and go on. And so particularly for this particular excursion, for the prince to go to visit his town, the king ordered his subjects to make sure the whole cities and streets in the kingdom was kept neat and clean, everywhere perfect, so that the royal child has no way of noticing the imperfection or poverty or other problems of life, so that it doesn't change the mind of the Siddhartha during Siddhartha. Anyway, so Siddhartha with his friend Chandaka went on the horse-driven cart on the royal sort of excursion, and it is said that so when they went excursion, the whole street was paved and cleaned and neat and kept, and flowers everywhere, beautiful, welcome gates, everything prepared so immaculately. And while the prince was riding his horse cart with his friend going, all of a sudden instantaneously there appeared a person who was sick, who was sick, and he was and coughing and vomiting and losing his own stamina and crawling on the floor. And when Prince Siddhartha sighted that, he asked his friend to stop the carriage and ask, who is this person who has lost all his stamina, who's acting like this? And then his attendant told him, this is what is called sickness, person who is suffering from sickness, even though he's very powerful, strong. When a sickness affects his body, he's completely helpless, become weak like this. Then he says, does this happen to just him, or who else will come? He said, this happens to everyone who's born. Everybody is subjected to suffer from some illnesses one day. And so then he realized, he says, then he got really disappointed. He felt so sad and asked his attendant, go back. He was not going to continue this excursion. So disturbing. So he came home very really sad and upset. The suffering of sickness is so bad around the world. And so he was becoming somewhat very disenchanted about the world and life and his own position in it. Then on the second day they went on an excursion to continue, and then on the second day also everything was kept very neat and perfect. But for some reason all of a sudden there appeared another spectacle, another sight. This time it was an old person who's very, very weak, very thin, covered in wrinkles, walking on a walking stick, and who was really trembling and wheezing and looked very bald, and more skin than his flesh, but still tried to walk in the street. And then the Buddha asked the horse cart to stop and watch this. What's happening? This? And he said, this is called old age. When your body is lost all the stamina through many years of life. Now his body is so old, and the body is no longer have any stamina to hold. And when he said that, does this happen to everyone? And when his companion said, yes, this happened to everyone, he got really disturbed. So that was second sighting, and that's old age and sickness. And the third one, on the third day when they went on excursion, they saw a dead body being carried in a funeral procession. And that was really shocking. He realized realized people are not only getting old and sick, but they also will be dead. What's the point of life if one is going to die like this? And he just, when he returned to the palace, he could not see anyone. Those beautiful girls or palace people who was otherwise immaculate dressed, they all looked like walking skeletons. His whole perception was completely transformed into seeing this almost like fast forward, where whatever it would be in 30 years' time. And so he just wouldn't have any appetite to eat food. He was really looking very depressed, sad, and he wanted to get out of the life. He didn't know his life had to go through the inevitable old age, sickness and death and parting and losing everything you have. And then he says, what's the fun way to exist? On the fourth day, when he went to an excursion, then they saw a monk. And then these are all miracles. These are all just apparitions. These 4 sightings are all apparitions caused by devas. So the fourth sight was the seeing of a monk, and his friend said, this is what is called monk who has given up the worldly pleasures and worldly material pursuits went on for spiritual birth, spiritual aspiration to gain enlightenment, to escape from the world of misery and materialism. And then Prince Siddhartha returned home. That's exactly what he wanted to do. So he wasn't carrying out any of his duty. He was looking like a man who has completely lost the interest in everything he was doing. And he went to his father telling him that I want to leave, I want to become monk. His father wouldn't consent, nor would his wife, and people believe that she has now already given birth to the child called Rahula. Another version of the story says the child was not really born before Prince Siddhartha left. So there's the true stories there, but we will not go into it now. So in this way, these are the first six main episodes in the life of the Prince Siddhartha before he became Buddha, when that he led the conventional life and so became king in the end, to the very delight of his father, who really wanted him to do just that. And so therefore the reason I thought I will tell you the biography of the Buddha is, even though you can read and you can even watch quite a few episodes on Life of the Buddha on YouTube. There are quite a few. If you really want to look, they are there. But I thought I'd tell you this because in this month we meant to recollect and remember the life of Buddha. But if you don't know anything, if somebody never told you the life of Buddha, of course unless you read it, you wouldn't know what Buddha's background was. Now, during his time, India probably was Upanishadic, various religious tradition that existed. There were no Hinduism as we know these days. There definitely were people who followed the Upanishad and various other pre-Buddhist or contrary to Buddha's religious traditions. Buddha's family probably were following those very prevailing religious culture and so on. So there's very strong upbringing associated with that. So it doesn't mean there was Buddhism before and Buddha left home and he became Buddha. So we will talk about his ordination and all the rest of life next week. But I thought I'll entice you and speak about the merit of learning about the life of Buddha and how he actually had everything for his life that we are seeking, but he gave that all up in the end. But the first until age, this is the age of 29. So we have just finished until his age of 29, where he still was the king, rich king Siddhartha, and reigning. While his father was quite strong and active, but he really wanted his son to rule the kingdom, to delight him. And so with that, we will conclude here today on the conventional story of the historical life of the Buddha. So we will continue the rest of the other 6 episodes of his life next week at the same time, same place. Thank you very much, everyone. O zonande damje zibanye damne nye bedana bamjen Jega na je balon druba ye zebe zolen ro dawara jo jamba ba jedren jamba da gondo zamba de ya de jende de da gunje je zo da la je gewa de da damje rado ngo janje zemje rimboje ma je ba na ma je je ba nyamba me ba Gone, gone, bewa, jo.